next have up Zarizana Abdul Aziz. She is a Malaysian attorney and activist for women's rights and human rights. And if you could talk to us a little bit about how activists in Malaysia, which ratified CEDAW in 1995, have used it to advocate for women's rights, and what lessons women here in the US might take from that.
Thank you. Yeah, before I hit Malaysia, I'll just talk about a few countries first.
Sure.
Hello. Yeah. Before I hit Malaysia, I'll just talk about a few countries first. And it struck me that Charlotte said it's a shame that the US has not. It's a shame that the US has not ratified CEDAW. It's a shame for the US, but it makes my work more difficult. Because every time when I talk about Muslim women's rights, rights in other countries, they say, but the US has not ratified CEDAW, you know. So, so please, what the US does, unfortunately, affects all of us. Now, I'll start by talking about Aceh. Now, you know where Aceh is. It was the area that was hit by tsunami. But following from that, what happened is that Aceh got autonomy, or partial autonomy from the Republic of Indonesia. And last week, I heard that the piece of legislation I've been working on for 2.5 years was finally passed, and it's the Women's Empowerment Bill. It's now the Women's Empowerment Act in Aceh, ahead of the Republic of Indonesia. So yay, Aceh. So, but what I'm saying is, in order to pass, in order to train and to work on that, we use CEDAW. And there were 2 people who were training on to get this act passed. There was Shanti Dairam, some of you might know, who was training on CEDAW itself. And as a lawyer, also dipping into CEDAW, I trained not only the legislators, but the Islamic scholars, the activists, the advocates, and people from the government departments, because everybody needs to come together to pass a legislation which is owned by the people. And also CEDAW also was not only used for the empowerment bill, but also things like truth and reconciliation. How do you use CEDAW and the standards in CEDAW to input into such other legislations? In Timor-Leste, when they got independence, what did they have? They had no laws. They refused to take on Indonesian laws. There was direct adoption of all the international treaties, including CEDAW. Out of that, the domestic violence legislation was discussed, promulgated, and unfortunately is still pending. But again, we use standards of CEDAW to talk about that. Talking about women's right in Islam, there's a whole lot of work being done where we use CEDAW to talk about culture and religion, to define and adopt standards. And finally, in Malaysia, of course, when we, just before we reported, a few years before we reported, the constitution was amended to provide for gender equality for women. And when we reported, Malaysia reported in 2006, and this is the shadow report that we provided to the CEDAW committee. Now, reporting is a huge process. It brought all the groups together. It forces you to create baseline reports. It forces you to audit all the laws in the country. And it's a rallying point, and what came out of that was that we were able to bring cases to CEDAW to make our government accountable. There was a huge case which was passed by the Supreme Court, and the government was not able to say, I have nothing to do with it, because it was the Supreme Court who passed the case. And because CEDAW also came out with standards like due diligence, what is the government's responsibility in ensuring that CEDAW principles are incorporated? It also has provisions that say culture and religion cannot be used as excuses. It also tries to break stereotypes. And following from that, the concluding comments. You have gone through CERT, and I know you've done some work on concluding comments. The same can be done with CEDAW, and as Radhika said, the intersectionality between CERT and CEDAW and whatever other human rights instruments that has been ratified. So it is important, it is very, very useful, I mean legally and otherwise, and go.